aware that his disciples, and here's some of his closest followers. These are like the people that were on the inside. You know, it's the VIP line we all wanted to get to, but we never quite did. Just me. Okay, fine. Have you been in VIP rooms? I just never get in there. And if you do, can you talk to me after service? I'd love to connect about that. Aware of his disciples were grumbling about this. Jesus says to them, does this offend you? Now, he's talking about something else. He's talking about something very similar to how big it is that we're talking about salvation and being saved. But does this offend you? He just leans into it. He's not afraid of it. And then at this point, you see some of us, especially followers of Jesus, that's when I say us, we just kind of hide this in the back pocket. We're like, oh, this seems too big, and so we just won't share it. We won't do these kind of things. And so maybe you've experienced a Christian that didn't really do the Christian thing. They just said they believed, but they didn't live that way. They didn't actually follow. And maybe that was the reason you didn't come to church for a while, because reconciliation wasn't sought, or maybe somebody did something really dumb, because we're all just human and we do dumb stuff, but they didn't ask for forgiveness. Or well, I don't know what your experience has been. But maybe you didn't hear the message of Jesus and you turned away, but maybe you've heard it and it still feels like that's offensive because I have a belief system and there's something I follow. And look at this next line, and this always puzzles me. From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. Jesus wasn't afraid. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't ashamed, but he came to provide a message that might be challenging. And you might be sitting here today. You might have never darkened the doors of a church, or you might have been a follower of Jesus for a long time, but you've become to grow as an admirer, not necessarily a follower. You have admiration for Jesus, like, oh yeah, Jesus and I, we're good. But your life wouldn't necessarily represent the following. And so you're like, oh my gosh, maybe it's time for me to turn. Maybe there's better options, or maybe I just need to pursue another relationship, or maybe I just need to leave this thing. And then Jesus leans into that moment, into that feeling, and he says, you do not want to leave too, do you? Jesus asked the 12. And then Peter is about to say a response that I think is so important for us. As we talk about Jesus being the only way and the truth and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me, this is an exclusive way that everyone can lean into the invitation. But then Peter leans into this and he says, if we're not going to follow Jesus, look what he says next, then to whom shall we go? I mean, where are you going to turn? Yourself? Maybe family? Where are you going to go? And what Jesus is saying here, or what Peter is saying here, is there's all these other options, and as hard and as challenging as it seems to be a Jesus follower, where else would I turn to go? Who else would I follow? And you've all been there. Moments where you wanted to turn, right? You're missing opportunities, maybe because you're a Christian, and you wonder, what if I wasn't? You're tired of being left out. Those things look really fun. Tired of being left out. Maybe I'll just put this in the back pocket. Maybe you don't really see any good coming from your faith in a certain season. Maybe you're frustrated with God. This is one of my frustrations about being a pastor, is people think they can't be frustrated at God at certain times. Read the Psalms. You can be so frustrated. I can be frustrated. It's like, seriously. Maybe it's in a relationship that God wants you out of, or to stick it out in. Maybe you're being honest and you're losing business. You don't want to forgive because you feel like you're giving that other person the upper hand. And you want to go on your own way. You want to get noticed. You want the wealth. You have vacations to go on. I mean, who's got time for generosity? But to who will you go? If not you, who? If not Christianity, what? And Peter realized what the others overlooked. To walk away from Jesus is to walk towards someone or something else. And some of you may have already walked to someone or something else. But Jesus today has an invitation to come back. And I'm going to talk to Christians for a moment, and then for those of you that aren't followers of Jesus, I'm going to touch on something at the end. But for those of you that are followers of Jesus, I got a few questions that I just want to ask you. And I'm not going to point out things. I'm not going to browbeat. I'm not going to do this type of stuff. But if this is the greatest gift that we've received, I'm going to ask you just a few different questions. Does your time reflect it? If we're followers of Jesus, does our time reflect our following? These are questions that I ask myself too. If I'm a follower of Jesus, do my resources reflect my following? In my relationships, do my relationships reflect my following? Because when I think about this in the way of Jesus, following Jesus doesn't always have personal ambition attached to it. It's to live for something greater than yourself. To serve in a kid's classroom when kids will never say thank you back. To give sacrificially and nobody notice. To wave people in at the parking lot. To open up your home to a small group of people and maybe only 2 showed up that week, but you opened up your home. To serve our students and our youth, because the next generation is the next generation of our church. Make no mistake that if we do not serve them well and we do not invest in the next generation, there will not be a next generation in Canada, full stop, period. It will be hard ground. But why do we invest in our students? Why do we invest in our kids? Why do we do small groups up and down our church? Why is this such a key, pivotal part? Because we believe in Jesus, and he calls us to follow him. And by following him, he says, if you want to be the greatest, serve the greatest. And so I don't know what season you've been coming out of. I don't know what season you're in your life. But I want to encourage you to ask yourself these questions. In my time and in my resources and in my relationships, what does following Jesus look like? And if you're candid about those answers and you don't quite like them, make a change, take a step, because the gift that Jesus gives us is a better way to peace, a better way to manage your wealth, a better way to manage your time and your relationships. And it's not to take something away from you, that he's hiding something from you. He's calling you to a better way. And then for those of you in the room, maybe you're not a follower of Jesus. The gift of following is for everybody. And it comes not at the cost of signing up to church membership. It's not attached to anything financially. It's not attached to certain outcomes. God just says, hey, follow me, and take that step to trust me, and I'll lead you into life.